Ever notice how fear seems to have this like uncanny knack for showing up at the worst possible times?
Right.
Like right before a big presentation or when you're about to try something new, and it's like suddenly your heart's doing a drum solo.
Yeah.
And your brain's decided to just take a sudden vacation.
It is interesting, isn't it? We're often told to view fear as like a weakness, something to be avoided at all costs.
Right.
But what if, instead of like running from it, we actually kind of leaned into it?
Okay, lean in. How do we do that?
Yeah.
Isn't the natural instinct to, run in the opposite direction?
Oh, I get it. Believe me.
Yeah.
But our source material actually makes a fascinating case for seeing fear as like a teacher.
Okay.
It's almost like fear is this like uninvited guest showing up with, a valuable lesson.
Mm-hmm.
But we're too busy panicking to even hear what it has to say.
So instead of trying to shut it out,
Yeah.
we should be getting curious about what our fear is trying to tell us.
Exactly. Fear often highlights our deepest desires and values. Think about it. If you're afraid of failure, it means you truly care about succeeding.
Right.
If you're scared of judgment, it reveals that you value acceptance.
Mhm.
It's not about erasing fear entirely, but understanding the message it's trying to convey.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. It's like fear is holding up a mirror, showing us what truly matters to us,
Right.
even if it's not always the most comfortable reflection.
Precisely. And once we recognize that, we can start to shift our perspective from fear as an enemy to fear as a guide. And that shift is actually the first step towards unlocking courage.
So how do we actually start building that courage? Because let's face it, most of us don't just magically transform into fearless warriors overnight.
Yeah.
Right.
You're absolutely right. It's a process, and the source uses a really helpful analogy here.
Okay.
It compares courage to a muscle.
Mhm.
You wouldn't walk into the gym for the first time and expect to bench press 300 pounds, right?
Definitely not. I'd probably pull something trying to lift the bar.
Exactly. It's about starting small, building up our strength gradually.
Okay.
So in the context of courage, those small wins are actually huge EE.
Yeah.
It could be speaking up in a meeting when you're normally quiet, or trying a new recipe that seems intimidating,
Oh.
or even just setting a boundary with someone when you're usually a people pleaser.
So those seemingly insignificant moments are actually crucial steps in strengthening our courage muscle.
Precisely. And each act of courage, no matter how small, reinforces our resilience. It's like we're proving to ourselves, hey, I can handle this.
Right.
I can face this fear and come out the other side.
It's almost like building a track record of wins,
Yeah.
even if they're small victories, to show ourselves that we're capable of more than we think.
Exactly. And as we accumulate those wins, the source suggests that facing fear actually becomes less daunting over time.
Right.
It's like anything else. The more we practice, the better we get at it. We become more comfortable with the discomfort, so to speak.
But what about those times when we feel like we're facing a fear that's just too big to handle on our own? What about the importance of having a support system? Because I know the source material touched on that as well.
You bring up a really important point. The source emphasizes that surrounding ourselves with people who believe in us can make all the difference in our courage journey.
It's like having a cheer squad, right?
Yeah.
People who are there to encourage us, remind us of our worth, and celebrate our victories, no matter how big or small.
Absolutely. Having a support system, whether it's friends, family, or even a therapist, can help us feel less alone when facing our fears. Shared fears are lighter, and shared victories are definitely sweeter.
I love that. So we're getting curious about our fear, building up our courage muscle step by step, and surrounding ourselves with a supportive community. Now, the source also talks about this fascinating idea of transforming fear into motivation.
It might sound counterintuitive, but fear and motivation actually share something really powerful in common.
Okay. So instead of letting fear drain us or paralyze us, we can actually harness that energy and channel it in a more productive direction.
Exactly. The source challenges us to view fear not as a stop sign, but as a source of fuel.
I love that visual.
Yeah.
Fear is fuel. It's instead of hitting the brakes when fear shows up, we can hit the gas and use that energy to propel us forward.
Precisely. And the source emphasizes that every courageous act, whether it's big or small, takes us one step closer to our full potential.
Okay.
We're not just overcoming fear, we're actually using it to become the best versions of ourselves.
It's like fear is this unexpected teacher, pushing us to grow and evolve in ways we might never have considered otherwise.
Exactly. And speaking of evolving,
Yeah,
remember how we were talking about building courage like a muscle?
right.
Well, the source also highlights the importance of believing in ourselves throughout this process.
It's like we need to be our own biggest cheerleaders.
Yeah,
Reminding ourselves that we are stronger and braver than we might give ourselves credit for.
absolutely. And the source really drives this point home. Unmasking our inner strength is a journey. And like any journey, it requires belief in our ability to persevere.
It's like even when fear whispers those doubts in our ears,
Yeah,
we have to counter them with a resounding, I can do this.
precisely. And remember, it's not about waiting for the fear to disappear completely.
Right.
It's about choosing to act despite the fear.
Okay.
It's about trusting ourselves enough to take that step, even when we're trembling.
So you're saying it's more about courage than fearlessness.
Exactly. Courage isn't the absence of fear.
Uh-huh.
It's the willingness to move forward even when fear is present.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about understanding fear as a teacher, building our courage step by step, creating a supportive environment,
Right.
and even transforming fear into motivation. What does this all mean for us, the listeners? What are some practical takeaways we can apply to our own lives?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's about shifting our perspective on fear.
Okay.
Instead of seeing it as this, like, monstrous enemy,
Right.
we can start to view it as a potential teacher,
Yeah.
a guide, even a source of energy that can be harnessed for good.
It's almost like flipping the script on fear, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, fear, thanks for showing up, but I'm in charge here, and I'm going to use your energy to my advantage.
Exactly. And secondly, remember that building courage is a process.
Okay.
Don't get discouraged if you don't feel like a fearless warrior overnight.
Yeah.
Start with small, manageable steps
Right.
and celebrate each victory along the way.
It's those small wins that build momentum and create a positive feedback loop.
Precisely. And finally, remember that you don't have to do this alone.
Yeah.
Reach out to your support system. Friends, family, mentors, whoever makes you feel seen and understood. Share your fears and goals with those who uplift you and believe in your potential.
Community is key.
Yeah.
There's so much power in shared experiences and mutual support. You know, it's funny, we often talk about finding our inner strength
Yeah.
as if it's this hidden treasure buried deep down.
Right.
Something we have to go on some grand quest to uncover. But maybe, just maybe,
Yeah.
it's not about finding it at all.
Right.
Maybe it's more about, like, unmasking it.
I like that. Unmasking.
Yeah.
It suggests that our inner strength is already there, but it's been covered up,
Right.
perhaps unintentionally, with layers of fear, doubt, and those pesky self-limiting beliefs we tend to carry around.
So by facing our fears, by taking those courageous steps we've been talking about,
Yeah,
we're essentially like peeling back those layers and allowing our true strength to shine through.
precisely. And the source reminds us that this journey of unmasking our inner strength is one of self-discovery,
Right?
resilience, and boundless potential.
Yeah.
It's about embracing the fullness of who we are, fear and all.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive for me.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a whole new perspective on fear. It's not this enemy to be conquered,
Right.
but a guide,
Yeah.
a teacher, even a source of energy waiting to be harnessed.
And remember, you have everything you need within you to face your fears and live a courageous life.
Oh,
Trust yourself, believe in your capabilities,
right.
and never underestimate the power of your own inner strength.
Yeah.
It's there, waiting to be unmasked.
Beautifully said. So to all of you listening out there, we want to hear from you.
Yeah,
What small, courageous step will you take today?
right.
What fear are you ready to face? Share your thoughts and experiences with us. We're all in this together,
Yeah.
and we can't wait to see your inner strength shine through.